What is going on, shorties and shortettes? I'm in the garage doing my usual thing, smoking a house blend cigar and getting ready to work on the car. So in the last video, we had issues with the Honed brake booster delete because I did not have a template. I basically sent them pictures of the pedal that I modified, and they said if the clevis pin rotates freely and you've modified it such that you had to cut into the ear for the return spring a little bit, not a big deal. They said it's pretty common, and I thought about it myself, and in theory, so long as the distance from the original hole to the new hole vertically is 25 millimeters as they specify, it should work as it's supposed to be designed, even if it's a little further back than it should be in a horizontal axis. Because if it's further back in a horizontal axis, that means that you just need to adjust the push rod and there's no mounting configuration issues. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. A little more modification is needed, but I think we're good to throw this pedal in. Okay, so what do we have here? So right here, this is going to be a bracket that attaches to a return spring. So what happens is when you press the brake pedal, the return spring basically pulls it back, assuming there's no brake pressure in the master cylinder. This is the new hole, and you can see the new hole is very close to the edge of this bracket. So what I did was I took a cutoff wheel and I sanded it down so that I could fit the clevis into here, and then the clevis allows it to attach to a push rod. The push rod goes up into the master cylinder through the booster delete. And that's how you mount it all. So I'm going to go here with the jeweler file, clean this up a little bit because it's got some burrs on it, and then we're going to try and throw it in the car. Alright, so this is the brake booster that came out of the Civic. It looks like on this brake booster, come on, you can see there's a little bit of rust in there, and that's probably from a leaking master cylinder. I mean, if you look at the bottom of this, it's pretty rusted out. So that could probably also explain some of the crappy brake feel I've had. But yeah, so the idea, anyway, is to basically, I'm going to measure. So I measured how much this shaft is sticking out from this, and it's 3 millimeters. So we're going to take this clevis and put it on a shaft that's provided by Honed. Okay, so now what I did was I tightened it and I marked it because I've been told that getting this rod adjusted correctly is tough on these kits. So that way, if I need to loosen it or tighten it and move the rod in or out, I'll know by how much I did or didn't. Because sometimes it can be tough to tighten this. There's 3 moving pieces. There's the rod, there's the nut, and there's the clevis. So yeah. All right, y'all. So right now we're mocking up the push rod, and so this is the original hole. And you can see there's a little divot here, and that basically allows this push rod to be adjusted inward if need be. This push rod should be at about 3 millimeters stick out at the bottom underneath here, but just to be sure I had enough room to adjust, what I did was I modified the pedal a little bit here. As you can see, there's a little divot in there. So I just hit it with the cutoff wheel and then took a rounded file and just went in and grounded a little bit. There's still plenty of material on this brake pedal. So here's the articulation. It's limited by the body of this. This is the articulation on the new spot. And then here's the articulation on the old spot. There's a little bit more articulation here because they cut out this top part. So I think that it should be good because this bottom articulation is about the same. It's not ideal. I would like a little more articulation. But we're going to knock it up in the car and see how it goes. Worst case scenario, we're going to have to take it all apart and do it over again. Yeah, this has been a lot of work. I might grind this down a little more, to be honest with you, just because why not? But yeah, this is how it's looking right now. Well, it wouldn't be a day in my garage if I weren't sweaty as hell. So I did get the brake booster delete in. The hole for the brake booster delete mount is actually higher than the hole for the firewall, but I plugged it in and it seemed to work. And EK, I think, is the same as the EG kit. I don't like how they didn't include that in the instructions. Like, I feel like they could have included, hey, by the way, your hole's going to be off center, for people like me who actually build our own parts and like are paranoid about everything and want to win championships. So yeah, a little sketched out on that. But what I did, so instead of, they recommend on the Honed website, they recommend that you have a friend, and I don't have friends. So they recommend you have a friend feed the bar through here that actuates this master cylinder. And then that way you can mount the master cylinder up. But I didn't have a friend, so I mounted the bar to the brake pedal first, and then I put the brake pedal in, and I basically zip tied the brake pedal to press it forward, so it pushes the bar into the master cylinder. I'll show you what I mean. Also, let me take this off the tripod. Okay, so you'll notice that I have some, these are actually the flange nuts. I put flange nuts on because the thread was not long enough for this ITR master cylinder to use the nuts that come on the car. The nuts that come on the car are actually these just regular nuts that you would get like at a hardware store, kind of, with no flange or nothing. Focus! Okay, so the nuts, the bolts that you, or the nuts that you would get for the master cylinder are these like regular hex nuts with a split lock washer. I used the flange nut. I had a bunch of regular nuts just like the ones that came off the car, but I wanted to make sure that there was a little bit extra torque, so for more surface area I got these flange nuts. Now I mentioned inside of the car I did some witchcraft to get it to work. You'll notice I zip tied the brake pedal, and then that held the brake pedal down. So we're going to break that zip tie off. It's got some tension on it now because it's pushing the master cylinder, and then yeah. So now I did bleed this last night, but I'm gonna get in and do a little more master cylinder bleeding, just in case there are any bubbles, and then see how it goes. So I installed the brake booster delete kit yesterday fully, and I wanted to walk you guys through the install. I had to get a little bit creative to make this booster delete work correctly, but so we have, this is a 1-inch master cylinder from an Integra. Here is this is a brake master cylinder brace that I got from eBay a long time ago, and I had to flip it upside down because this brake booster delete from Honed actually moves the master cylinder up a little bit. Because it moves up a little bit, there's a hole in the firewall, and that hole actually sits lower than the hole for this bracket. But this bracket, the push rod still goes through without hitting anything. I did test it. I got the return spring on the brake pedal, and everything seems to be copacetic. I did have to modify, I made these brackets here. I did have to modify these so that they would be flipped up with this brace. And then I had to rebend some brake lines. They're not beautiful, but I'll show you what I did. So a little while back, I decided to take advantage of the rule set for Honda Challenge and do a proportioning setup in this car so that the front and the rear can be controlled separately with the valve. And then, when I did that, I had to run all new lines, and so the lines are all hand bent. Not my best work, but not my worst work, surprisingly. It actually isn't too bad. And so what I did was I used a bunch of zip ties in this, Pinterest-style formation to basically hold the lines from abrading and from bending and all that stuff and keep them in place. And then I also had to reinstall my brake pressure sensor, which is over here. So it's that black thing on the wall. So this is a 1,600-pound brake pressure sensor as opposed to a 1,000-pound. And we basically use this Permatex pneumatic slash hydraulic sealant. And so what this does is it basically seals NPT threads for very high pressures. I used it on the sensors previously and it worked really well. So hopefully it cured overnight because there is still fluid in the system. So yeah. So I ordered some Schrader valves for the master cylinder cap so that I could bleed the master cylinder, or so that I could bleed the brake system without pushing the brake pedal and stuff, but they didn't arrive yet. So I'm going to check on that with Amazon. But then in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install a bumper beam on the front of the car because it obviously got destroyed when I rear-ended Lee in the race after he lost second gear on the start. So definitely not the prettiest piece on my car, but this is off of a 95 Del Sol. There's a little bit of rust on it, but my plan is to try and remove some weight by drilling some holes in it. Alright, little update. This is one of those times where you make a modification and you think it's going to pay off, but the time spent is not worth it. Would have been better off just probably waiting for Charlie to finish making another batch of EG bumper bars. They're only $150, so I can't see why I shouldn't have. But anyway, I'm in the process of drilling out these holes. I did dull one of my hole saws in the process, so I'm now on this like antique wood hole saw. So we'll see how that works. But I might actually go to a Sawzall for the bottom holes and then make just make cutouts of generic shape, or just stop doing this because this is kind of a waste of time. Alright, so we have this bumper beam mounted. As you can see, we have some sweet speed holes drilled in the front. I gave up. I was trying to, make this lighter. Ideally, you'd need to cut out a lot more to make it lighter, and I just didn't want to do that because I didn't feel like spending time buying hole saws and stuff for a minimal improvement in weight. It's better to just wait until I can get the one from Charlie. But the good news is the foam piece is not damaged from the crash. It's a little damaged, but we can make it work. And that's good because this allows me to bump draft people again. Even though I haven't had good luck with bump drafting this year. I do think that is it for today though, guys. I recorded enough content, I think, for like a 10-minute long video. So please recommend this channel to your friends, subscribe to me, like the videos when you watch them, share them. It helps a lot. I need to grow this YouTube presence so that I can eventually develop better, and not better, but more partnerships at some point. Different companies who can help me make this a viable thing long term. It is an expensive hobby, and I would like to not go underwater doing this. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and take it easy, folks.